Hey guys, welcome back to Medical Coding with Blue. Today's episode is all about tips for learning medical terminology. Now, if you are brand new to my channel, welcome. I am Blue. I'm a medical coder. I have been a medical coder for over 10 years. I really love what I do, and I like sharing all of my tips and my tricks and my stories with all of you. So if you haven't had a chance to, I hope you'll take a second and hit that subscribe button. I hope that you will like this, and I hope at the end, if this helps you, that you will share it with somebody that you know. Okay, so let's get started. All right. So many of you have asked me lately, Blue, help me. I'm getting so overwhelmed with medical terminology. What are some tips and tricks to learn it really quickly? Here's the thing, and I will say this first before I say anything else. My tips are very old school, old fashioned, but they work, okay? To me, it's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about doing the work. You have to be committed to do the work. And how you look at it is going to really affect whether you learn it, whether you absorb it quicker or not, okay? So the thing is, I did talk about a meme that I saw the other day in another video, but if you haven't had a chance to see that one, I said that they don't make movies that are 6 hours long. Why? Because nobody would watch them. The movie would be too long. But if you broke it up into 6 different episodes, people would binge watch it. So it really is going to, especially when you're learning medical terminology, understand that learning medical terminology is like learning a different language. Literally. If you're multilingual, were you able to learn Spanish overnight? Were you able to learn German or French overnight? No, these things took time. So the way that you think about it is, okay, if I know that this is going to be a huge undertaking, then I need to break it up into more manageable pieces. You have to think of it like that. With medical terminology, I always suggest that you guys learn the root words and you learn the prefixes and suffixes. Medical terminology is made up of Latin and Greek words. So a lot of times you'll hear like doctors, they say that they know Latin or they've studied Greek or whatever because it helps to learn medical terminology. A lot of those words are put in together to make these words. So if you know like the prefix or the root word or the suffix of a word, you can be able to piece them together. When I was going to interview at different medical coding trade schools, they said this one recruiter, he thought he was real smooth, and he saw me come in there and he's like, oh, welcome, let's talk about your future, let's talk about what you're going to learn. So he sits me down and he writes this huge big long word, okay, and he's like, what does this word mean? I said, that's EEGD. And he's like, well, how did you know that? I said, well, you just piece the words together, And he wrote out another word. I can't even remember what he wrote out now, but I already knew what it was. It was an ENT doctor. It was the other one. And he was like, well, how did you know that? And he goes, have you had previous medical background? No, but I do read a lot. And I do know prefixes and suffixes of words, and I knew the root of some of these words. So, if you have auto, you're talking about the ears. If you laryngeal, you're talking about the larynx, just different things. And so it's not that difficult once you start breaking words down into chunks like that, because it does help you to better understand, because then you can piece words together. So sometimes you have to use like context clues as well. That's like language from back in the day, in elementary school when they were teaching us sentence structure. And they said, learn the context clues. What is this about, to help you to understand these words that you don't understand? And so it's the same thing with medical terminology. You're going to have words that you don't understand. You're looking at them like, what the heck is this word? And then, instead of just going to the medical dictionary, a lot of people will get frustrated and be like, I don't know this, and I can't learn this. Get that out of your head. If you have that in your mind, I can't learn this, that's what your brain's going to do. Honestly, like if you have that negative talk in your head, like this is so much, I'm never going to get this. Yes, you are. So many of us can do it. You can do it too. And it is about being committed to learn this. You have to be committed. There's no other way. And it's going to take the heavy lifting. You have to do the heavy lifting in order to get this done. It's like people who want really nice bodies, right? They want nice bodies. They go on these crash diets and they starve themselves, all trying to get the best figure. If they would just go to the gym, or if they would just go lift weights, or if they would change the way that they eat, they would be able to get that same body and not be having to go through all the suffering. So if you're looking for shortcuts trying to learn medical terminology, it's not going to happen. You have to do the heavy lifting. You have to do your part. And I always suggest, and I know I'm going to get some people upset at me, but this is the truth. Flashcards. You go to the Dollar Tree or wherever your dollar store is, get a pack of index cards, and then you write a word on one side and you flip it over and you write the definition or what association you would have with that word on the other side. You can do that for learning your prefixes and your suffixes and your root words. So that way you can break them down, and then when you piece words together, then you'll get it and understand it a lot quicker. I am going to be doing a whole video next week demonstrating how to write out flashcards, but it's not just going to be for medical terminology. It's going to be for other things as well, because that was a request that I did get from one of the viewers. Thank you very much. So I will go ahead and honor that request, because to me, right, I think sometimes a lot of people, and especially in different generations, I noticed this. If you weren't taught how to study, it's difficult now as an adult to do that, right? Because you're like, where the heck do I begin? How do I begin? But like for people that are in my age group, we understand, like, okay, you got to read, you got to write out flashcards, you got to do these things, because we didn't have like all these fancy phones, and the internet barely came out when I was a very young adult. So, I mean, it's one of those things. So it really is going to take you learning how to learn, right? That you're going to be able to be able to do this. I would suggest that you do as much hands-on studying, the reading, the writing out the flashcards, versus getting all these apps on your phone and just flipping your phone and just looking and, oh yeah, cool, I can learn all these words because of these flashcards on the phone. Yeah, that is cool. But the thing is, it took out one little part of the studying that is crucial. The connectedness of writing out the word because your brain can see it. And see, that's the thing. Your brain's looking at this phone, right? And it's saying, oh, okay, well, here's a flashcard. And then you flip your finger, right? And then it flips to the other side of the flashcard. And then you have this thing, right? Oh, yeah, okay, I just did a flashcard. Cool, I can go on to the next one. But you're not physically connected to that flashcard. You didn't make that flashcard. That flashcard's already done. It's a program. It's on the phone or the computer. This is why I say, if you write out a physical flashcard and you do it that way, your mind and your brain connect when you're writing stuff down, which is why a lot of times, you'll see people write down things repetitively so that it can help them to remember, because that's the way you can help absorb some of this information. So my hugest, strongest advice is not to do shortcuts here, guys. You can't. When it comes to learning medical terminology, you cannot shortcut this. You can't fake the funk when it comes to getting a good, solid foundation, whether it's in anatomy, physiology, or medical terminology. You cannot fake it. You have to work it the way it needs to be worked, which is going the long way. Make the flashcards. And like I said, I'm going to do a whole video on that next week. Be sure you tune in on Sunday to the community tab or to my Instagram page, where I'll post a schedule of what's going on next week. Get your kids or your family members involved and do drills. I had my mom, at the time my mom was still alive, and she was helping me to do drills all the time. She wrote out flashcards for me as I wrote out some flashcards, and she would sit there and drill with me. And so that would help, because there would be some that I did that I would sort of know already, right? And then there would be some that she did, okay, well, I don't know, but let me work with it this way. And as we're working with the flashcards, the ones that I already knew and that I was getting through really quickly, we would put those in another pile to the side, and we would work with the ones that I was struggling with, okay? And then my mom said, okay, since you're struggling with these so much, then you need to sit there with these ones, these cards, and instead of going through those, you need to write them out, and then we'll try them again. And so I just did it. I mean, there's really no other way to get around it. And I always talk about, like, if you are issued a book, that you need to read it from cover to cover. It's the same thing, because you're getting all of the information. And while it may seem like a huge chore to do this, I get it. I mean, I was there. But I like to study. So my frame of mind mentally, when I think about studying, is that it's not a chore, number one. Number two, what am I going to learn today? What am I going to be able to absorb? And what am I going to be able to just, spout out as naturally as possible? Because that's what happens after a while, is like when you're studying these terms, you'll be able to say, okay, that's what this is. That's what this is. That's what this is. And you're able to just do it, and it will feel really awesome. It's like when you are building up in weightlifting, right? You don't start out at the 250 bar, right? You can't, you know what I mean? Like, you have to build up. It is the same principle. I would also suggest looking on YouTube. So one of the other things that I did was, okay, I'm studying this medical terminology. I need to hear how some of these words sound, because I don't know, like, how to pronounce some of these words. So I started watching, like, shows like House, when House was on, and then I ended up getting the DVDs. You see, I'm telling you guys, I'm old school, okay? And I would listen to what they talk about and the terminology that they use. I would watch, like, Investigation Discovery, when they talk about, like, medical mysteries and things like that. I would watch medical mystery shows. I would watch those things to try to expose my brain and my mind more to the medical terminology and anatomy and physiology. There's so many other alternatives to learning. It's like when you're trying to learn a different language. You know what I do when I try to learn a different language? I watch a movie that I like, right? When I will tell you guys this. Remember when Shrek came out? Shrek, right? Shrek was hysterical, right? Shrek was hysterical because, there was little ones around. I had family members that were little ones, and we always had to watch it. And so, you're watching it, and it's made for kids, but it has a little bit of adult humor in there where, okay, the adults can enjoy it too without, like, really the kids understanding what it means, some of the jokes, I'm just saying. And so what I would do is, but I started to enjoy the movie because I like Shrek, you know what I mean? I like Donkey. And so anyway, what I would do is I would put the language in Spanish, and then I would put the subtitles in English, so that way I could understand what was being said. And that was when my Spanish was getting really rusty. My Spanish is rusty again because I don't speak Spanish. There's not a lot of people that I can speak Spanish with, around here. So it makes it difficult. Whereas, before I was around a lot of people who spoke Spanish, so I could be able to converse a little bit more easier. Now I've really forgotten a lot of the language. So it's just like, it's pitiful. But when I started doing that, when I started watching movies like that, it started to help me to remember. So again, when you are looking to learn medical terminology, think of it like you're trying to learn a different language. You're going to have to expose your mind and your brain to different stimuli so that it knows, okay, we're in the learning mode, okay? I would watch surgical videos, when I became a coder, to understand, like, the surgery process and what does trocar mean, and when they say that they remove the robotic arm, or they use a fluoroscopy, or they basically inflated the stomach with air, you know what I mean, like to get everything ready. There's a word for it, but I mess up on the word, so I'm not going to say it. Embarrass myself. But it is about doing things like that. It's getting creative with how you're trying to learn, okay? So yes, while my tips are very basic, and you may think, well, I could have, thought of that. Well, okay, but I'm just saying, people are asking me, this is what I'm telling you guys, and there's not going to be any shortcuts. There's no shortcuts when it comes to anatomy, physiology, and medical terminology. None. So you may as well get used to it. And especially like with like what I suggested before with anatomy, that you break it down into the different groups, right? You learn your bones, and then you learn your organs and things like that. So you can do that with medical terminology as well. But like I said, if you take the time before anything and everything else, before you start trying to dig into these big, huge words, take the time to learn the prefixes, suffixes, and the root words, then you're good. You are good. And so, that is just a suggestion. I do have a Patreon channel, and I'm going to plug my channel for just a second. My Patreon channel, I do crossword puzzles for medical terminology to help you learn medical terminology. Now, my stuff is not official, but this is just me as a veteran medical coder sharing all of the things that I know. These are the things that have helped me, and I wouldn't suggest these things if it didn't help me. And I study a lot, and on top of being at work, I probably put in another 20 or 25 hours a week. It's starting to go up a little bit more because of what I do on Patreon, because I've devoted a little bit more time to doing more different sorts of things on Patreon. I do critical thinking exercises, and critical thinking is more like it's not just a scenario and do code this. How do you get this code? It is literally think about what you would do in the situation. What codes would you be selecting, and what is the reason behind it? That is what critical thinking is. When we are in medical coding school, a lot of times this critical thinking is left out. It just depends on if you are getting instructed by an instructor, and if that instructor is really enforcing that medical, like critical thinking, right? I was gonna say medical terminology, that critical thinking. So that's my little plug for my Patreon channel. I will leave the link down in the description box below. The pledge levels start out at just $1 a month, and you get access to all of that. So I did it that way to make it easier for students or people who are just starting out, because I want to help you guys, but at the same time, at least this way you have something to study with. And I like to break things down. I mean, that's just the way it is. But again, when it comes to learning medical terminology, you can't get out of it other than to do the heavy lifting. And like I said, these crossword puzzles really do help. That's what my mom did for me. She was just like, oh, look what I found. So she found on the internet there was sites to make crossword puzzles, and so she would do them up, and I would do them, and I mean it was like a machine. I owe my whole career to my mom, because my mom was there for me and she supported me. And that makes a huge difference, especially when you're an adult going back to school. And I think a lot of times when people get overwhelmed with medical terminology, it's because they have maybe people around them that are maybe not supportive, or they don't know that they need support, right? Your family members or your people around you, they don't know that you need support. But if you need support, speak up, speak up and say, this is a huge undertaking, but I know I can do it. I need you to support me. Can you hold these flashcards for me? Can you do these drills with me? Can you ask me these questions? Those are simple things to get other people involved. And sometimes that's what they want. They want to get involved and help you. And sometimes it's a good thing. Or if you can find other people in your area that are studying the same thing, if you're in a school, then try to do like little study groups. But always surround yourself with people who have the same energy and the same thought process as you. If you have somebody that wants to do the heavy lifting, and you have somebody that wants to just learn the quick, easy way, and I'm just going to hurry up and just fly through this, that's not going to work. You need to have people that are on the same mental level, that they want to learn this. Okay. And yes, it is going to get frustrating, but give yourself breaks. You can't just try to cram 5 hours and try to learn all this medical terminology, because nothing is going to stick. You have to be more consistent and break it up into chunks. Study for an hour, take a break. Okay. Do an hour a day, do 2 hours a day. However quickly you want to get through this is the time that you need to put in. But do not study for more than 1 hour at a time without giving yourself a 10 to 15 minute break afterward. This way it will get yourself to be like relaxed, and then you can rest your eyes. And somebody asked me the other day, how do you have eye strain? Do you suffer from eye strain? No, because I've trained myself that I need to look up and I need to look around every once in a while so that I can rest my eyes. And I'm not trying to sit there and strain my eyes. I use good lighting when I'm reading. I'm not going to sit there and try to strain my eyes in a dark room trying to read something that I need. The filters, I will turn the filters down. If I'm reading articles online, I'll turn those filters down so that way I don't have that light in my face constantly. But it's all about, you know, giving yourself a break and knowing that this is a marathon, it's not a sprint. So don't try to do the shortcuts, because doing the shortcuts is not going to get you far, okay? So like I said, my biggest bit of advice for learning medical terminology is to learn the prefixes and suffixes and roots of words, so that way you can really break it down and understand what that word means. Because it's a lot easier to piece together words rather than trying to memorize whole words. You're not going to try to memorize. Don't try to memorize whole words. It's impossible. Okay, doctors don't even do that. Okay, they know a lot. They know a great deal, but sometimes they still have to look up stuff too as well. But knowing the roots of words and the prefixes and suffixes is really what is going to save you. So that is my advice on that. But yes, I hope that you will take a moment and check into some of those things. If you want to look up apps and things like that, don't ask me. Please don't ask me what apps do I use, because I don't use apps. Again, I told you, I'm old school. A pencil worked for Einstein. I'm just saying. Again, I go by books. If you're asking me my recommendation on books, there's so many books out there. And I used the Barron's anatomy flashcards, and I'm pretty sure Barron's has medical terminology flashcards as well. But like I said, I would honestly recommend doing your own written flashcards for that. I'm just saying. And then, like I said, just looking on YouTube. You know, it doesn't take a lot. You don't have to spend money to learn medical terminology. You just have to know where to look, okay? And you can look in the apps, you know, as easily as you know, you can reach out and ask me what books, you know, would you recommend, or is as easily as you can look on the internet and see what books are out there, what books are available, because I don't know. There's lots of different books out there. And there's some, I didn't even know that there was specifically a book for medical coders, medical terminology for medical coders. And a viewer asked me, well, what book do you recommend for medical terminology for medical coders? I said, there's no book like that. I haven't seen a book like that. And then she sends me a link for it. It's just like, well, then if you know that's a book, well then get it. You know what I mean? Like you can read the description of the book. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, you know. But it was just like, well, yeah, there's a book right here. Okay, well, I don't know all the books, you know. So if you find a book that you find is reasonable, and you think you can learn from it, then go for it. But like I said, you don't have to break the bank when it comes to buying all these books. Just do it the old-fashioned way. You know, learn the prefixes and suffixes and the roots of words. And there's lots of different websites out there that have this information for free. Again, I'm not going to post any of them because I'm not going to like advertise something that I haven't really truly looked into myself. So again, you guys can do a lot of that research and get used to doing research on your own as well. Because it is a part of being a medical coder that you're going to have to learn to do research on your own when you need to find answers to questions, because trust me, your coworkers are not going to want you to go running back and forth to them without knowing that you have tried to look up answers on your own. Okay, so again, that's my very old-fashioned advice. It is a marathon. It is not a sprint. So don't treat it like it's a sprint, okay? Be patient with yourself, because yes, it is a lot. And yes, if you are an adult and you're just going back to school and you're thinking, what did I get myself into? We all thought that. But don't ever think that you can't do something, because yes, you can. You can do whatever you believe in, you can do. Okay, so I'm going to wrap this one up. But I will go ahead and See y'all next week. So if you are a medical coder, a medical coding student, somebody curious about the fascinating world of medical coding, a provider or a nurse, I invite you to like and subscribe and follow me on my journey in medical coding. I will see y'all next time. Bye.